All right, it looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Erasmus Expeditions. We are here with episode 31 of the Help Action series. Tonight, we are going to be discussing building relationships, both in RPGs themselves and also kind of in the community and at your table, kind of things of that nature. This show, for those of you who haven't seen an episode before, is one part interview, one part topic discussion, and one part Q&A. So like it says here on the bottom of the screen, if you have a question for Chad and myself, please post it, and I will try to tag it, throw it up here on the bottom, and then we will get to it. Now, I'm very excited to welcome my guest for this evening on. He's a very, very close friend of mine. I get the pleasure of playing with him frequently, although we were just discussing not frequently enough. He is my brother from another mother. Chad, you son of a bitch. How are you?
Jeremy, thank you for that. That warms my heart and the cockles of everything. I'm great, man. I'm doing good. It's been a bit, and I missed you. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to do this. Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be talking about relationships and how in RPGs and how they can kind of manifest. I'm really excited about this. Been hyped up.
Man, I was thinking about it. You and I, we get the chance to play with one another quite a bit, like I said, and that's always a fantastic time. But it's been a long time since you and I have had the opportunity to just sit down and chit chat about RPGs.
That's true.
We used to do a lot.
We used to do that a lot. Yeah.
We were 2/3 of the dudes of yore. And I truly miss that. It's nice to have you to sit down with and chew the fat.
I'm really excited for this. So.
All right. Before anything else, I have to tell you, I love you, and I love your shirt.
I love you too. I love you. I also love your
shirt. Cole asked if we coordinated our shirts. It's close.
You know what? It is.
It's purple.
Coincidence, but fate. It's
really just grand taste.
Yeah, we are excellent connoisseurs of
fashionistas.
Fashionistas of taste. It's great. We knew what our audience was looking for, and we provided. That's what's up.
Shit, I spit on my desk.
Yes, spit take. First one of the night. I'm good. I'm okay. Trust me, you'll make me do one. I'm sure by the end of the day.
This is off to a grand start. Okay, so we have some other questions. Karen asks, "How did we both get to be so awesome?" I'll let you answer that because you're the expert.
Well, I for one don't know how you got to be so awesome, my friend.
I met you.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of high praise. Please don't give me that. That's too much. But I don't know. I think that the cool thing about our friendship, specifically our friendship, is that every time I've ever played with you or had you as a GM, or even just being around you, I feel like, when you meet a friend that brings out the best in you, that is what you are to me, Jeremy, is like when we're playing together in a game, I can always depend on you as a support role, and you bring out the best in my characters. And that makes me feel good. And so as a friend, you also do that, because I tend to feel like if I need to lean on somebody, especially within the community, it's going to be you, buddy. Like, I'm going to lean on you, and I know you're going to be there for me. So that's why I think that makes us awesome. There you go, Karen. That's my example, is that find this symbiosis, if you can, with one other person and figure it out, because that's the cool part about having this kind of a friendship, where it builds those character relationships real quick.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. And thank you, Chad. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, buddy.
I was not expecting a sincere answer, so there you go, everyone.
I was just going to completely BS my audience. No, I don't do that, sir. I don't do that.
I hope you all have your Kleenex at hand.
I am an
ladies and gentlemen.
honest person, and I am going to tell it like it is.
We're going to be boohooing and sobbing.
We are. We're just going to be two grown man children by the half hour. We're just like, I love you, buddy.
All right.
Okay.
So let's get started here.
We're
talking about building relationships. We have an actual question. Not that the others weren't actual questions, but
they will be.
Question relating to the topic. Let's see. This is from Alan.
Okay.
You two played TMNT as brothers, and it was so well done. Are you sure you're not brothers in real life?
I will have to check my birth certificate. I'm pretty sure that we're not, but adopted, maybe. For sure. Jeremy, from the day one when I first met him in person, I tell you right now, he felt like my brother. He really did. Yeah, it's one of those things when you meet a person for the first time, and despite what I may look like on camera and how I am during streams, I'm an introverted person. Like, I don't just go up and like hug people and introduce myself to people. That's not me. So having people that can bring that out in me is great. And Jeremy made it an easy transition. So I think that goes a long way when we talk about stuff like TMNT, right? Especially when we're supposed to be brothers. It makes it really easy for you and me to have that brotherly banter and that back and forth that I feel like it only comes organically when it is real life too, So because we're so close in real life, it allows us to be that close in game and kind of push each other's buttons and see how far we can kind of pull and stretch the characters a little bit. And I find that fun every time. So, yeah.
Yeah, hard same. I actually have a thing written that says that, talking about the fact that you and I have this wonderful rhythm that we typically fall into whenever we're playing in the same game. And it doesn't seem to matter what system or setting or genre that we're playing in. That seems to be the place where we both set as our default whenever we're in a game with one another. Like you said, it's a brotherly taunting. It's very much a playful kind of push of the buttons. I find that incredibly enjoyable as well.
Yeah.
But that actually kind of leads directly, sort of, to one of the preloaded questions that we have. Sure. And it's from M. Davies. And they ask, how do you navigate an antagonistic relationship between characters while still making the game fun and knowing how to not go too far?
So for me, I always try to take knowledge of who I'm playing with first. Like, I'll take a look at either my players if I'm the GM, or I'll take a look at my fellow players if I'm one of the players. And then I'll tend to try and find one player that, at least with story-wise, whether it be with my character or some sort of backstory or something, they kind of have an integral touch on, and then that way I can start like pulling and having that kind of antagonism between each other, and I feel like it's comfortable. Always having that communication with that other player is vitally important, but having it be one rather than the entire party makes it a lot easier too, because then you can have that conversation specifically with that player, and that can then broaden that interplay as you go along. I love it. I enjoy it. And I tend to avoid it unless I know that the person that I'm going to be playing with can handle it. I think that's another thing too, is you have to be aware of your fellow players' comfort zones and knowing what they're going to be willing to take. I've played with a number of different players, and some I would never do. I would never do or never say some of the things that I've said to you, Jeremy, in game, because I know that would probably break down people. For some
I've been meaning to say,
yeah, yeah, I know. Have you cried at night for some of the things that I've said? I'm sorry.
Night.
I'm sorry. I've hurt your heart and soul. Please tell Jamie I'm sorry for having you go to therapy.
No, man. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that most of the best players that I've seen, especially the ones that are good at doing this, are people who have strong senses of empathy. They can see what other people are going through. They can I lost the other term for it. Empathy, compassion. That's the other word.
Right.
If you have a heightened sense of compassion and empathy, which again, most good role players and most good actors and most good gamers tend to have that, because that lets you understand what somebody is meaning or saying or feeling better than purely having a conversation with them.
Right.
And understanding the temperature of the table, like when something is being received well and when it's not, is a crucial skill to have as a player and as a dungeon master. Yeah. I think that antagonistic relationships are a lot of fun. They can be.
They are. They're some of my favorite, and you can have them and they're not all the same, you know? Like you and I have played characters together where we literally joke around with each other the entire session and just jab at each other all session long. But I can give you examples of antagonistic relationships that I've had in other games that aren't that way. I would consider the relationship that I have with Sam DiMarcurio has a wonderful character by the name of Will in our Strahd campaign. He will tell you, I have yelled at him multiple times in that game as Faust. He tells me every time that he's glad that I bring that energy and that like antagonism to the table. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, I feel bad yelling at you. And he's like, no. That's the best, because that brings out actual energy and brings out actual character dynamics. And I think that that's something you shouldn't be afraid of, right? Like, don't be afraid to allow that antagonism to happen naturally, organically. Don't force it, but if it happens naturally, if a character starts to irritate your character for some reason, any reason, and you feel the need to speak out about it, if you do so in character, it makes those characters more real, more balanced, and refreshing, I think. So yeah, don't like just scream and blow your mic out when you're yelling at somebody, because it's not what you want. What you're hoping for is a moment, just a small pocket of a moment that makes a big impact that then can lead to further RP, which I think is special. Whether it's a joke, whether it's a jab, whether it's a for me a trithing like diatribe or monologue that just rips somebody apart and then walking away, like, yeah, you just do that. It's fine. You can have those moments.
And I think RPGs are best when there is conflict. That's the point.
That's the
point of good storytelling. The point
yeah.
of role-playing games.
I think that's the point I'm trying to get at. I'm just rambling because
no, not at all. I think a good story needs conflict in it in order to be interesting. And that's how you have inter-party role-playing based conflict. And I think the only way to really take it too far, honestly, is if it detracts from the session to the point where the pace stops.
Or the rest of your party is just like...
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
It's isolated the other players from the party.
Yeah, they're like, we don't want to play anymore. We're done. Yeah,
exactly. Or like you said, if it starts to be taken meta in a personal sense,
where they take it personally or something,
then it needs to stop.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't bring your shit to the table, and don't take shit away from the table.
100%. 100% agree.
It's a game. You got to keep it that way.
Yep.
Awesome. So I have talked a lot on this show in particular about the importance of maintaining healthy relationships, and specifically the role that communication plays in that.
Sweet. Yeah.
What are ways, in your opinion, that communication can build good rapport at the table, both in character and in the meta sense?
Oh, okay. Perfect. I think it's absolutely important to have communication, especially with RPGs. When you're playing with friends and you're playing different characters, I love doing conversations prior to games, prior to campaigns. Like session zeros are my thing. I love them to death because it's nice to be able to kind of figure out what the entire party wants. What does the entire group want to see out of it? What kind of characters do they want to play? Are there going to be bonds that aren't just, mechanically on your character sheet that you want to see be a part of the game? I can tell you right now that when we were building Strahd, I reached out to Tamiko, and Tamiko reached out to me, and we built that character relationship early on because we said we want to tie something together, and that's what we did. I think it's super important to have a kind of communication, though, not just to build. It's to build character, to inform your characters, but also to build relationships outside of it. Like, think about it. The more communication you have with your fellow players within the community, the more they're going to start trusting you, the more they're going to invite you to further games, the more having communication within this community is essential. It really is. It builds you up. It will build the amount of the circle you have of availability to games, all that kind of stuff. It's just, I think some of the best things for me, though, that I've seen, and I'll give you examples of stuff that I've seen. M. Davies does a phenomenal job a lot of times with her games where she'll send out little questionnaires prior to our games to have us fill out those. And those are our personal questions. Those aren't even about our characters. It's personal questions about us as players. Things that we want to see, things we want to do. I remember one of the games I played in, which was the Mission 99 game. She was like, what are your biggest fears? And I had to list a list of my personal biggest fears. And then I had to watch that play out in game. Those are the kind of communication things that are very vitally important. And it's also knowing what your veils and what your stop points are. I knew going into some of those games that I've played, especially with those GMs that have given me those things, that, okay, I'm going to experience things that may make me feel uncomfortable. But the cool thing about that is with those GMs that have done that before, it's that communication ahead of time that says, hey, this may be uncomfortable. Are you okay with it? Please tell me the things that would make you feel uncomfortable so that way I don't push the boundaries too much and keep you from not enjoying the game. So yeah, for me, I think it's that. Like, the more you can give, the more in-depth stuff you can do, especially as a GM to a player or as a player to another player. It makes the enjoyment of the overall game way better. Way better.
Yeah, I am personally for my games. I'm a huge proponent of front loading a lot of that work. Anybody who's played in any of my recent campaigns, probably within the last 3 or 4 years or so, knows that I ask for a lot from my players ahead of time. I typically do the cope list thing, which I have a video on that here on the channel that talks about why I do that and what it is. I do at least one PC connection, so you have to establish some kind of connection to a different party member, however strong or weak or positive or negative you want to make it. At least 2 NPC connections, so create an NPC from the setting that I'll try to work into the story. A secret that your character may or may not know about, but that you as a player provide me with. And then I usually will draft up a 10-question questionnaire for each character, and I have them be leading questions. So if you've ever looked at the Dread RPG book, which is a fantastic role-playing system, the entire book and every single page on the bottom has these very direct questions, like, who was the last person you murdered? Or why will you never see your father again? Things that are very leading questions. They're drawing a specific kind of answer out of you. Mm-hmm. But what happens, I have found, whenever you answer those kinds of questions, is it gives you a very informed definition of some of the character aspects of a person. And it gives you a really solid foundation of where to start. Well, that's communication. You're literally putting down on paper, even if it's somewhat subconscious as a player, you're putting this down on paper and giving it to the GM, saying, this is the stuff that I want you to fuck with.
Yeah. And if we're talking like full campaigns, that's what I love doing. Is I want to try to find one PC that I'm going to attach to, at least one, if not more. I want to have those NPC moments. The ability for me to create NPCs is cool too, because a lot of times you'll have players or modules that you're running, or you'll have full systems that especially in the case of AbTab, there's a lot of systems right now that are created by the community. And so the idea of having the D&D breadth of content that you have, like, for instance, with Cryfoth, Dragon Grin, you're with Momentum, right? There's not a ton of written lore. And so the ability for the stretch to happen of, cool, I get to do all these like nifty things, or maybe I can run a game that's like this in this universe. The open-endedness is really great, but it also allows for that communication and the development of that lore by the players. Because then if they inform whoever's running it that, hey, I want to see this, or I want to do this, like, within reason, obviously, like, yeah, it makes sense. I love that. I love when any player or GM comes to me and says, I have a plan, I have an idea, what do you think of this?
Yeah,
I will run with it all day.
I think vocalizing your desires, your motivations, goals, fears, concerns, all of those kinds of things are not only important in real life relationships. That's how you establish boundaries, and how you let people know what's okay with you and what's not, and what you like and what you don't. And that's how you find people that you get along with, and how you learn to avoid the toxic people in your life. But vocalizing those kinds of things is important in real life. But I think it's also very important in character, but also as a player at the table. Like you said, establishing boundaries, letting people know, hey, this is not an okay thing for me. Or in character, say, my character really would not want to do that. Now, don't make yourself an asshole.
Yeah, there's moments where I've had those where I'm like, you know what? I personally really want to do that thing, or I want to go do that thing because player-wise, that's a cool deal. But would my character ever do that? No. And I have to like hold myself back from, yeah, let's just go do that. Let's go, like playing a cleric, for instance. Playing a cleric. I play a lot of clerics. I play a lot of paladins. Typically, that means that I play a lawful good alignment. Does lawful good usually? Huh? I would. Yeah, I would. Of course, I would. You know, but then it's like, okay, if we down an enemy, does my character then go and loot the body? Probably not. You know, like, and I've gone through so many different types of characters that, like, I have to stop myself sometimes and be like, whoa, hold up. Would you do that? Nope. This character would not do that. Put the gun down, walk away, you know, like don't loot the bodies and leave the room, you know. So yeah. I think that as far as, you're right, the communication is vitally important, and I think it changes how your character too is perceived during the game. You know, as long as, depending on how the communication goes at the beginning, also depends on how your development goes. I've got some players right now that I've been around that we're talking about full reworks on characters right now because they're no longer enjoying their character type. And that's fine. But having that communication down the line is really important, saying, you know what, I had fun at the beginning, but now I'm not having fun. How do we fix that? Those are the kind of communication things that have to happen.
Yeah, I agree. And I think a large part of that actually is how you build trust. And trust, I think, provides structural integrity for a relationship. So not only meta wise, but not cheating on your roles, or maintaining an inclusive and safe atmosphere for everyone, etc. But also in character. So it kind of leads me to one of my other questions. Is it acceptable to do things like stealing from the party or betraying their confidence?
Here's the thing. I personally tend to try not to do that. It's not that I haven't wanted to. Trust me, I've wanted to so many times. But I think it's always the characters that I play. I don't think it's the fact that I wouldn't do it. It's the fact that most of the characters that I play tend to not be self-servient assholes. They don't play to serve themselves.
To be fair, though, you did play Leonardo. I'm just saying.
I did. But is he really a self-servient asshole? If I remember correctly, he's not. He is the leader of the group. Raphael is the one who's like, nah, I'm gonna go out in the middle of the night with my bike and beat people up, and then not tell anybody about it, and then have to have it.
So in other words, you're calling me an asshole.
I'm calling you an asshole.
That's what I hear. All right. I just want to know how the things lay out here.
Yeah. I had to get it in once. I had to. It's worth it. But yeah, no, it's just, it's fun. I think for me, I would be able to do that if my characters called for it. You know, like I've been in games where people have done that. Dude, Jeff Doty, our brother Doty, is notorious for like playing. By the way, he is the best man at the long con. Okay, he is the best man at the long con in terms of role play. He will start off a game like chill as a cucumber, and then by the end of the game, when it comes down to, hey, my character will benefit, sweet, flip on the entire team. I've had it happen so many times. My character will benefit, the rest will fall. Doty, I love you, buddy. I really do. But I can't do that. Jeff can do that. I can't. My characters cannot break that wall of destroying the other character's confidence. I'm always like, I want to keep everybody alive and then do all the good stuff.
I think part of what the way I feel about it was brought up by Tamiko. She said that it depends on the game, and typically it requires the enthusiastic consent from the other players. Now, I don't know about enthusiastic consent, but I have done these kinds of things before. But it has to be the right moment. It has to be the right moment for the story. It's not just about getting the leg up for my character. Like, it has to feel right. It's like, no, this is that moment in the movie when that character does the thing. Like this, that's exactly what this is. So I'm going to play it out because that's more interesting to me.
Yeah, 100%. 100% agree with that.
But I still think that it should be kept to a minimum.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it's something that you're doing all the time, then it completely loses its impact and it becomes non-important. And
it should be. I feel like those kinds of things should be in big moments. 100% agree.
Yeah,
it should be absolutely. In big moments. Like I have a red button. I have the option to press the red button or not press the red button. Do I press the red button? That's the kind of big thing. Like that red button will destroy the party or will save you only, right? You have that one escape pod and you get to press it. That's your choice. That is your choice. But those kinds of big moments, you can't, if you did that with every little detail, it would become something that wouldn't be an impactful storytelling moment. It would just become like, oh, that's so-and-so, they're doing that again. And at this point, now we should just take them in to the local law enforcement and blah, 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 or, send them to a pit of hell. That's fine too. Like I can just banish someone and call it a day. That's fine.
Yeah. In my experience, it tends to be more disruptive than constructive.
Yeah.
Typically. So I definitely think it's something that
use sparingly with the right people.
Use sparingly. Exactly. Yeah. And definitely in the right situations.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's answer Alan's question. It's been hanging out here on the bottom of the screen for a while. What advice would you give to create in-character bonds to the other players to expand upon the RP?
Okay. For that, I think it's always dependent on the game, obviously. It's dependent on the game, dependent on the system. But it's also kind of using what you know. Use things that come from your own personal experiences. So I think the reason why I play a lot of clerics is because I am a religious person in my day-to-day life, right? So it makes it easier for me to role play those kinds of moments in game. But it also allows me to then go to other players and say, here's what I'm playing. Here's what I'm going to play. How can I then take from those, and which one of the 4 or 5 of you wants to then latch on to my character? I usually have it be one person, because if it's more than one, things kind of start to get muddied. If it's 2 people, that's fine. Once you start trying to have an independent bond with almost every character, it becomes really convoluted. So I feel like if you can find one player at your table and then work on expanding those bonds, that's good. Also, having bonds that are not tied to the D&D stat blocks are great. Like finding those things that you can say, okay, how did we meet? This is how we met. All right. Well, if this is how we met, then maybe this is what I did. And having that communication back and forth allows the 2 of you to create a story and then present that story to your GM. And then that GM now takes that story and makes it into their portion of the story. They can utilize all the little things you've put down together to put it into the game. And it just naturally and organically begins to flow out in the game. And I love that.
Yeah, I think drawing from real life it's not essential,
No,
but it is a massive help.
Yeah. I will say that, yeah, I will say it's not essential. You're right. It's not.
Yeah.
But
because you can draw a lot from your own personal experience.
I think it gives a better performance when you can draw from your experience, for sure.
But for me also, I watch a lot of television and movies, and I have for most of my life. Read a lot of comic books when I was younger. I don't read a lot of novels. I'm way too slow of a reader, and it takes me forever to actually finish reading a book. So the reading that I do is RPG books and Wikipedia links.
Yep.
Because I'm a student of history and culture, so I use that in my games.
Learn by the cliff notes, like that's yep. That's pretty much it.
Which is not the best, but so I consume a lot of stories, and a lot of relationships in those stories are often, in my opinion, the most interesting things about good stories. Setting is always really nice. It's the juice whenever you bite into the fruit. It's the first thing you taste.
So profound. So profound.
Thank you. I'm a poet. Didn't you know it? And that's the first thing that you bite into. But the relationships, and not just relationships between people, but relationships between people and places, relationships between, different entities. So, different kingdoms, things like that. That's the sustenance for the meal, if you will, from a story. If you don't have interesting relationships, then your story sucks, plain and simple.
I think that finding those interesting relationships is important too. Like, if you can, and then obviously there are tropes for everything, right? There are tropes for everything. So you're going to find a trope, and you're going to find a trope that you like. But how you portray that trope is entirely up to you. It, like father-daughter dynamic or brother to brother. Those are all different depending on what game I play in. I've played the buddy cop. I've done the due diligence with playing like somebody who has amnesia. I've done so many different characters, but in a way that each one of them feels unique and special because of the bonds that I had with other characters. It's not because I personally, I never think it's because of what I do as a player. I always think it's what the other players do to bring that out in me. So they inform my decisions at the table. I may not, if I were just playing in a bubble and I didn't have the other people around me, then I could just play that character however I like. But having them kind of have those bonds with me, have those really intimate, special relationships, like those things help inform the way you interact with the world. They help inform the way that you're going to behave going forward. Like, for instance, with you and me, a lot of times when you and I play together, there's this constant like back and forth of we kind of hate each other, but at the same time when we play together, we're constantly supporting each other. Each time we may have a couple jabs here and there or do something, but we end up doing something in game that supports each other. We never want to tear each other down. And that, I think, is another important thing of that, is when you're building those character bonds, don't use it to tear the character down. Use it to build the character up. It can be a negative thing. It can be a negative moment. But that negative moment then builds that player and that character up. So, yeah, I have this wonderful arc that's happening, and then, man, there's this dip, but then the crescendo happens again. Like we have a bad moment, but there's always that recovery, which I think is great, and it makes for wonderful storytelling. It does.
Well, and I think again, one of the things that probably best exemplifies you and I's relationship that we typically fall into is the Leonardo Raphael combination. It's very much like you said. It's the, we are never going to let up on each other ever. That's
true. Yeah, we don't let off the gas. Yeah.
But when the other's back is against the wall, we're the first ones there. Even if we're, pissy with each other in the scene just before it.
Yeah.
And to me, that is an example of a trope relationship that I've always found fascinating. That duality of acerbicness with deep, true love. That having that kind of feeling whenever you have that person in your life is complex enough to feel like a very real relationship.
Yeah.
Just by hitting on that trope. Everybody has that person in their life some point, and they may not still be in their life, but at some point in their life, everybody's had that person where they're like, I'm so happy to see you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you shit from now until the moment that we have to depart. And,
Yeah.
Like, so,
it's perfect.
Yeah. And I think tropes are very healthy. A lot of people are real scared of them. And I don't understand why. Now, if you're just plagiarizing a trope, then it's going to fall flat on its face. You
gotta bring something to the table. You got to bring something to the table that makes that trope different. Yeah, right? Exactly. Like I could always play a Hercules character. Like everybody knows the Hercules arc. Everybody knows the Achilles arc, Icarus, right? Everybody knows those kinds of arcs. But if I were to play a character like that and I played it exactly like that, then it's not fun to watch because it's been a story that's already been told. But if
chocolate's great, put some peanut butter in your chocolate, and oh boy,
you have a Reese's cup. No one's gonna back away from a Reese's cup unless you have a peanut butter allergy. That's unless you have a peanut allergy, then you're gonna back away.
Okay. Let's get on with this stuff. We have some.
I mean, we have to, but you and I can keep rambling forever. I'm good, man. I got that.
Yeah, no, I'm good too, man. I've got plenty of time. But you're popular. There was a lot of questions. So
see that. I'm looking at the chat right now. Holy cow.
Next question. A method of building a solid foundation with someone is supporting them at their weakest, being there during their darkest moments. Equally important, I feel, though, is the inverse of that, to celebrate their victories. And I think that translates at the table. Being excited when somebody rolls a crit, asking their character to divulge more of their backstory and engaging them with that information. Recognizing when a scene belongs to a certain character and figuring out how you can slip into a supportive role for that scene. What are some ways that you utilize to actively shine the spotlight on another character in their victories?
Okay, that's a good one. Jeremy, so for me, obviously I talk a lot. I tend to monologue, and I know that. I know. But it's because I love doing those things. But when you're in a game, I think there's always this sense of a story beat, right? Like for somebody who writes stories, somebody who has that kind of understanding of story progression, it makes it easy for you to realize when, cool, I should stop. This is where my character needs to take a back seat, and this character now gets the spotlight. And that's cool. And to me, I want that. I think everybody should want that. You obviously want your storyline to be told because you have a PC storyline is going to eventually play out. That's fine. But everyone should have an arc especially if you're doing a campaign. Everyone should have an arc. Okay, so I get an arc, someone else gets an arc, someone else gets, and then when those arcs happen, you are consciously aware that those arcs are happening. So giving that player that moment to embody that, discover cool things, discover new things. Maybe it be an NPC, maybe it be a relic or an artifact. And just being able to watch their emotions and then play off of their emotions, that to me is a really cool thing. I enjoy it. I thrive off of it. Getting excited about crits is a great example, right? Like when when you're in the middle of a battle, especially in the big battle, and somebody scores a crit and does a massive amount of damage. To Miko, I'm looking at you. When that kind of stuff happens, the entire table explodes because we weren't expecting it. We weren't, we were hoping for it, but that's, I think, what is really cool about this is you get to, you're right, you get to celebrate those moments, and you should celebrate those moments because those players are going to celebrate your moments too. And so I think you have to realize that there's that like balancing act between where am I and where are they? And as long as we're on the same even playing field and everybody's getting moments to shine, that's the greatest thing. And when you have that really good dichotomy where everybody's doing that, it's the most fun ever. Because then you just get to play off everybody. And there's not a single stop beat. It just keeps going and going and going.
I think that comes from the same kind of awareness of the fact that you aren't, like, this whole thing is not your story. It's not the story of your character, where you're the main character and everybody else is simply supportive characters. You are a part of an ensemble, and you have to understand where your character fits in that ensemble and do what you can when you can to elevate the entire production, the entire show, the entire story of what you're playing through, and not simply elevate the image of your character's badassness. You need to, I think, genuinely want for your compatriots' moments to be brilliant. Because when their moments are brilliant, then it makes the overall story that you're telling so much better. And like you said, if you're a good player and you're there to support everybody else, when your turn comes, if they're good players, they're going to do the same for you. And everything becomes much better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I'll give you an example real quick. Saturday, we played a game over at Roll Call RP, which I love. That family over there that I'm running, that we play a campaign in a homebrew world of Omori. And super cool. I love it. And last night, we had one character who went in, guns a-blazing, all badass, and then immediately got grappled, locked up, paralyzed for the rest of the battle. We all felt horrible about it. And we were just sitting there going, what do we do? How do we get this person out of this scenario? Over and over and over again. And afterwards, that's when we discussed doing a complete rebuild for the character, because it was such a devastating combat for all of us, because we were trying to be so supportive and trying to be so working together and hoping that things would go well, and nothing went right. All the rolls were bad. And some nights you have those. But being able to like wash that over, say, okay, this is a bad night. Bad night for bad rolls. Everybody had a bad night. All right, cool. But we all survived. Now, where do we go from here? Clean it up. Let's work through it and focus on what needs to be focused on, which is raising that character who had a really bad night up next week. When we go to play again in 2 weeks from now, we're going to try to really hard to raise that player and that character up so that they really have a shining moment. Yeah, I think it's vitally important when stuff like that especially happens, because I can tell you I've taken some hits in terms of taking things away from the table on a personal level, like when a character death or whatever, and usually it's okay. Usually I don't begrudge any of it. But there are some nights where you're like, man, I really wish those rolls were better. I really wish I didn't die. That would have been great. But, you gotta also know that I don't know where I'm going with this, Jeremy. Please stop me. I'm starting to talk over myself.
He's got a little sign he raises. Help me.
Help me. Help me.
Yeah, I think that it's imperative to just want everyone to do well at the table, including the GM. I think you can employ a lot of these same techniques towards something that the GM throws out on the table. You can be excited for their bad guy getting a solid hit. You can be excited for a cool trap that they designed. Willingly walk into it. If your character failed their save to notice it or what have you, then as a player, embrace it. Do what you can to support and elevate the story that's being presented. Don't rail against it. And I think that'll help everybody's mood at the table. And it'll certainly help your experience as well, I have found. Okay, so let's keep rolling here. We have another question from Alan. We'll go ahead and address this one here. Outside of PC to PC relationship, do you find yourselves often creating relationships outside the party for your characters? Things such as family, loved ones, mentors, enemies, etc.
Okay, this one, yes, 100%. Alan, I do this every single time, buddy. Because I like my characters to be fully fledged entities. I never like my characters to be a stat block. I will always opt to make them more real. And for me, yeah, it's cool that I can have these relationships between my PCs, but my character had a family at one point. Obviously he's going to have a set of parents. Obviously he's going to have some form of growth in some way. They are always going to have something that's outside of the party, and they should have something that is outside of the party. Because that means, guess what? Your universe is being lived in, right? Like your universe is being used. If you don't utilize all of the toys that are given to you, are you even playing with the sandbox? Like, that's how I look at it. Like, are you even doing that if you don't utilize it? So yeah, I tend to look at, okay, what is my character's motivations? What are their goals? All right. Then I go into something like I go into Xanathars, or if I don't have Xanathars, then I go further and I start building their life. I start figuring out who they had, where they go, all this stuff, because then it makes my personal decisions as a character much stronger. Like if I know I got a family to go back to, if I know I got an enemy that's chasing me, something like that, like all of my motives are going to be changed if I know those things. So like if I have an NPC that's going to be a villain, and that NPC is now chasing me throughout the rest of the campaign, that's cool, because that means that everything I do for the whole scenario, I'm going to be looking over my shoulder. I'm going to be like cocking my gun twice or whatever, like notching 2 arrows instead of 1, whatever it is. I'm going to be double checking, triple checking, etc. If I have a loved one to go back to, I might have like a small pocket watch or a little locket or some sort of trinket or scenario that is like a momentum or a little memento that holds on to that person. And that character will constantly reference that because they want to have that connection. And then that may lead another PC to be like, hey, what's that? Why do you do that? What is this? And then that gets you an opportunity to pull out those strings and expand that universe. So yeah, I totally do that. I will do that all the time.
Yeah, I think that it's a very good idea, a good habit to start as a player. And that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, where in my campaigns, I have the players bring NPCs to the table for me. Because for me, that gives me a direct vein between the setting and your character. So I now know that you have roots in the world that we're playing in. And that's something that I can go after if I really, really want to set a fish hook nice and juicy for you. All I got to do is go threaten your family or your hometown or kidnap your character's child. And all of a sudden, I can pretty much guarantee that there's going to be a strong reaction. I might not be able to tell what the reaction is going to be, but I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be a strong one. And that's what I want as a storyteller. I want a strong reaction. Because then I know I've moved you emotionally. And if you're already moved emotionally, then you're going to be so much easier to then move further emotionally. And by the time that the session's all wrapped up, everybody's amped and had this really impactful emotional experience. And that's what we're all chasing, in my opinion. So that gives me a direct line to that. And I think that it's also, as a player on the other side of that, having those kinds of roots established always gives you something to play with in the moments where you're uncertain of what your character might do. Almost always, if you have a clear idea of who your character is and the way that they're connected to the world around them, when something happens, you typically have an immediate reaction to the way that that's going to make you feel. But if you're just human fighter with an 18 strength that dual wields swords, something happens, it makes it very hard to react to what's happening, especially in a natural way, other than with two swords. So if you want the depth of immersive role play, then you have to make vulnerable points for your character.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways to make vulnerable points is the relationship that your character has with those things in the world.
Yeah, they can't be armored in a bubble, like they can't be armored to the world. The world has to impact them in some way. Because if you go in and say, I am like almost like superhero-esque, right? Like, I'm a level 5 fighter. I'm going to do everything, smite everything. You can't, going in that way makes it almost like invulnerability, and that invulnerability causes you not to have those intimate and vulnerable moments. So if you portray a character as if they're invincible or they can't be touched because it's D&D and I've got magic, I've got a magic sword, things like that. If you bring those things, then it's not fun. It's not fun, and the rest of the players can't build off of you being like, I'm awesome. Just saying, you can't.
Yeah, it makes your character feel very two-dimensional and unrealistic. Which there are games that run perfectly fine that way. There's nothing wrong if that's what everybody is chasing at the table. But if you're the only person who's playing their character that way and everybody else is trying very hard to pull out this really emotional performance, well, it's not going to work very long. Okay, one of the questions that I like to ask, and I try to get this in the first bit of it here, but I mean we're still within the first hour. So,
Yeah.
one of the questions that I really like to ask all of my guests is, when and how did you find gaming? How did you get into the hobby?
Oh, are you so specifically? What are we talking about? Like gaming in general, or are we talking like
Yeah.
tabletop specific?
So, not as much video game, but
Okay.
how did you get into tabletop?
Tabletop. Okay, yeah. Well, so for tabletop, so I was not a huge player of tabletop games up until about when I was 14. Because when I moved here to Washington, I met Matt when I was 14 years old, I think. 13, 14, we met, and we started playing Neverwinter Nights together, actually. And like myself, our buddy Ian, and Darren, we all got together and we would play like 4 to 6 hours a night doing, Neverwinter Nights and playing stories and playing those things. And so Neverwinter Nights was really my first foray into D&D, because it's still D&D, it's just virtual. So I was building characters, building relationships. There's a whole segment where Matt and I built a whole township through the GM program, like being able to build something. Like we built a halfling town. It was super cool. It was we were the only two that were like super invested in making this happen, but we did it. We got it done, and it was pretty cool. So after that, we still kind of played on and off, and then Matt and Darren went off to college, and I went off to college and did my own thing. But when I kind of stayed home and did online, and so when they kind of came back and were here more often, Matt invited me to a home table and said, "Hey, do you want to come play?" I think we were playing Pathfinder at the time, and do you want to come play? We're gonna be running some campaigns and stuff. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll come jump in and see. And it was fun. It was fun. It was interesting storytelling. And I was like, what is this? What is this thing? Like, I knew it because it was very familiar with Neverwinter Nights previously. So I was like, oh, it's not just a transition. It's physical. But after that little nugget of like introduction, my desire to want to be around D&D and tabletop and all that stuff just became more and more and more. And now I can't get enough of it. Like, I want to run it all the time. I'd rather have this as a day job than what I do, like I would rather be playing D&D for a job than being in retail. So yeah, I think that's where I got started. I don't know if we ran like I don't know if he was running like some Citadel or if he was running a module, but it was fun. It was really cool. I started getting to become like a dice hoarder forever as soon as I got my first set of dice. And then, after that, every person that I met through this community, through the tabletop RPG community that was previous to it, just a bunch of different ones. I hopped in and out for a couple years between that, but then college took over. I went to school for game design and came out the other end. Couldn't really find a job at the time because I was trying to go for digital. And then, I was like, no, tabletop's more my passion. Tabletop's more my speed. So learn tabletop and get better at it. So that's literally what I've been doing for the last couple of years, is just playing tabletop games and learning mechanics and how to really utilize them.
One of the things that always fascinates me is the very, very wide breadth of things that brought people to the hobby. It's crazy. I love it. I never ever get sick of it. That's why it's one of the questions that I always ask of my guests. Because you have people who haven't been playing very long, but they found a really deep, passionate love for the hobby.
Mhm.
And you also have people who have been playing for 40 years, but they've transitioned between different editions or just different systems, or have evolved into now playing online or doing both. Because like you said, they can't get enough, they need that hookup.
Once it was in my veins, I was like, when can we play? Can
Yeah.
we play all the time? I want to hang out. I want to do stuff. I want to just be there. Can I live in your home? Can I live in your house? That's great. I'd like to live in your house.
Not if you keep talking like that.
No? Okay, cool. Thanks.
But it's just a really great feeling when it goes right, when everything the tumblers kind of click in place. It creates a very special feeling that doesn't get generated anywhere else. But the way that people find their way to it is always really, really interesting. And I'm very jealous of you. The fact that you were literally let into the hobby under the guise of, or not under the guise of, but under the guidance of Matt Click. There's not a lot of people that can say that.
I love him. I love him to death. And like, do I miss us doing like in-person live games together, like at home tabletop stuff? Yeah, man, I do. I love it. I missed it. But it happens. Life happens, and we grow up, we become, and he's doing fantastic. So I hop in. Trust me, I will put interest in every game that he runs forever, and hopefully sometimes we get a chance to relive the memories. Other times we don't, but it's okay. Because I think going back to what you said about embracing and celebrating the things in game during a game, same thing with your community, right? Like, just because I'm not in every game, even though my heart and my soul wants to be, because I can tell you right now, Jeremy, you've run a bunch of games that I'm like, I really want to be in that. Buddy, I really want to be in that. What time is it? Oh, it's a time where I can't make it? Well, that sucks. Like
time zones do
time zones and stuff. I get it. It sucks when you can't be there. But at the same time, I'm going to amp everybody up because I thrive on other people's success. I'm so happy to watch other people grow and build. It makes my heart happy when my friends are happy, and when my friends are enjoying things, like I enjoy it. I can't tell you how many times I've watched like Whispers and been like, I love this. I love everything about this. This is like, because all of you are my family. You guys are all really close to me, and I can watch that game and I feel like I'm at a home table, just kind of sitting eating popcorn, rather than just watching a game on stream. So I think it's a really different too when you're watching a game where you have close friends who are close to you, who you have met in person, who you have, like, it's completely different than watching a stream of professional streamers that I have no personal context to. Completely different. So yeah, that's my response to that.
Yeah, I think it's I just completely lost my own question.
It's all good, man. It's all good.
Getting old really sucks. I don't know if anybody's aware of that.
But, you know what? I woke up this morning and I looked at my beard, and that scene from Santa Claus where he shaves off the beard and then it grows back whiter?
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, where the hell did these white hairs come from? Like, I can understand getting grays, but dude, I can't tell it. Look, I'll get close to the camera real quick. I don't know if you can tell.
She got silver fox on me.
I got silver and white growing up in this beard right now, dude. See, like, I'm old. I'm losing it up here and I'm growing it out here, and it's just hard. Yeah. That's fine. I'll just become a witch and it'll be okay. It'll be right. It'll be fine. You guys get to decide what my phylactery is, though.
It's a D20.
D20.
I know it is. Yeah, I think the same thing applies, like you said. When you elevate and are excited and genuinely happy for the success of others, it elevates the ensemble. It elevates the group. It elevates the experience of the entire community. And I think being in a group like AbTab, it's the same exact thing. When you are helping other people get excited about something that they did, a victory, a triumph that they have, when you are feeling that genuinely, it makes the entire community stronger and better. And I think that wanting for that to be the case every bit as much, if not more, than your own personal success is crucial.
I could never play in a game and I would still love this community. I could literally be a lurker and never play. And I would be like, I'm just watching everything you watch. Everything you do, I'm watching it. Not that creepily, but yes, you know what I mean? It's just like, I could enjoy being a part of this community and not really being a part of this community and being involved.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, speaking of this community, there's another question from another good friend of mine, another good friend of ours, Jason. How do you handle character relationships that unintentionally push into boundaries, lines, or veils?
Ooh, okay. Very, very delicately. Very delicately. Like lace. Like it's just you gotta be real careful with that. I tend to not do that just because I don't wanna run the risk. But I have, and I'll be honest, there have been times where I've had to just be like, whoa, wait, never mind. This decision that I thought was an okay one, not okay. Not cool. I'm gonna back away from that storyline plot. Now we can retcon that, not have that happen because this doesn't feel comfortable. I think Jason, yours specifically might have to do with things like Masquerade, Vampire the Masquerade, because I know you are very, very prominent in running something like that. And some of the darker content kind of RPGs that are out there. I'll tell you, I haven't really played in a lot of those, so I don't have personal experience from that. But I guess how I'll put it is you got to be very careful. And then that goes back to the communication that we talked about earlier. If you're going to have that kind of relationship, or you're going to try to push that aspect of your game into a boundary, a line, a veil, which you shouldn't do, but if you're going to, you have to be very delicate about it. I can tell you, I've been in some scenarios where that's happened, and some have worked out great. Others have made me cringe a little bit at the end of the game. I'm like, ugh, we shouldn't have done that. But it's worth it if it tells us. I guess this, don't push it unless it tells a story. Don't push it unless it tells a prominent story point that you and that player are both comfortable with, and don't push it past that point that player or whoever at the table is comfortable with. Make sure that everyone at the table is aware of what you want to do. If they are not comfortable with it in any way, don't push it. But there is a way to do it. I think you just have to be really, really careful with it. Also, having people understand that it is a game. It is you embodying a character, and that something that your character does is not how you personally perceive the world. That's something also you have to kind of look at is that just because, let's say, just because I watched Hunchback of Notre Dame the other day, right? Just let's say I have a PC that's now getting burned at the stake, right? Like an Esmeralda sort of situation. That's happening in front of me. What am I going to do? That, to me, that is a boundary that now my GM is pushing, because this is something like, whoa, a little bit too much. Maybe crossing a veil or a boundary. But now how do I navigate that to make this better? Well, then, as long as the GM gives me an opportunity to say, hey, I want to rescue that person, or hey, I want to try to stop this in some way, shape, or form. Can I do that? And if they say yes, then great. If it's a scenario that you can't touch, then that becomes a little more difficult, because that is the GM taking your personal agency away, and that is highly important. So, yeah, building that character relationship, that character to character. You talk about PC to PC specifically, or GM to PC? Because PC to PC should always be talked to each other internally. Like, that should be a separate chat away from your group chat, where you both talk about it. You both say, hey, here's the storyline. Are we going to get invested in that? Are we going to be able to handle that? I think there are some cases where you can handle those deep dive relationships, but very rarely, and it's got to be with somebody you really, really trust. Like, that person needs to know that you are portraying a character, not your person. And they got to be willing to trust you the whole way, that they know that you're not going to break any line, boundary, or veil that they're going to set up. So, yeah, that's what I will say to that, Jason.
Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of what Chad said. For me, boundaries, lines, and veils are things that need to be established up front. That's not saying you can't establish them midstream. When something comes up and it becomes apparent that it is an issue, you should bring it up as soon as you can. Now, when you're playing with red light, green light,
you're freaking out, please hit the exit button.
X card, your red light, whatever it is that you have in place for that kind of thing, and it should be respected at all times, in my opinion. And I don't think that changes in relation to your question, where how do you handle character relationships that unintentionally wander into that area. I think when you figure out, oh, we've gone off the path and we're now in the deep, you need to stop, plain and simple. Somebody at the table is uncomfortable with it, and you should never intentionally go further than that.
Something as a player that you should be able to do is kind of test the water and see the reactions on the faces of your players. Your fellow players will inform you if that's going south. They will immediately inform you that, whoa, hey, no. Because if they feel uncomfortable, and that's like, if they feel uncomfortable, that's definitely when you should realize maybe we should backpedal. Because, yeah.
And I think that there are people, again, who don't have the kind of self-awareness or the level of empathy to be able to recognize that on their own. Now, as gamers, a lot of us are socially awkward people. And a large percentage of the group of gamers, in my experience, are people who have an issue sometimes picking up social cues, whether it's just through experience, a lack of experience, or through a kind of mental health type situation. There are those people who play, and their experience at the table is just as valid as everyone else's. So putting the burden completely on someone else to expect them to not wander into an area that's uncomfortable for everyone else is unfair, I feel. It is their responsibility, but not alone. So I think whenever somebody does that and it's apparent that they don't realize the direction they're heading and the effect that it's having, someone else at the table needs to be the person to step up in place and say, hey, hold on, wait, we talked about this. Like, we're not gonna do that. Like, that's not okay. And you don't have to be a dick about it. Just say, hey, this makes somebody uncomfortable, so we're gonna stop. And I think, again, that comes back to communication beforehand and establishing those boundaries, lines, and veils, but also in the moment of, hey, safety word, this ain't okay. We can't keep going. And it takes a lot to offend me. I'm a horrible sense of humor pervert. And most people who know me dearly understand that about me.
I have to have a swear jar every time we play around you. And I think I paid myself like $100 this year from all the chat. Thank you. I paid myself. Yeah.
And I think that most people who play with me on a regular basis, who know me well enough, understand that even though I have a dark, perverted sense of humor, that I don't mean it in a way that is meant to offend anyone. I never do. It's only to try to get a laugh out of people. That's just kind of who I am. And sometimes, yeah, well, human sexuality is hilarious to me. The way that people behave about it is just absurd. And it cracks me up.
Man. Like, come on.
But that's a whole nother conversation. Probably not for this show.
Well, can we do Help Action After Dark?
I probably should. Although the videos would probably get taken down from YouTube.
That's probably true.
So yeah, I think that it's very important to be aware of how what you're doing and saying is being received when you can. Because if you're going to have that kind of sense of humor that's very sarcastic or acerbic or perverted, you have to be aware of how that's landing and when it's not okay to keep going. Personally, I'm hyper aware of that. And that is why in my personal life, outside of gaming, I am very quiet and reserved and shy, because people don't know how to take my sense of humor, in my experience. So when I find somebody that is okay with my sense of humor, God bless your soul, because
corrupt me in ways I cannot speak about on camera. This is no. My sense of humor has definitely darkened since we met. So, yeah.
Perfect. I am glad that I can corrupt people. Okay. Let's do this. We're rolling about 90 minutes. So trying to find my original question. You got rid of it. Bastardos. Okay. Hold tight. Throw that up there. LA just popped in. Hello, LA. And to everybody else who is tuning in, thank you very much. All right. How important is the post-game shit talk? Do you find the need to decompress after a game? And if so, how contingent is that on your emotional investment in the events of the game session?
Okay. So I don't need it all the time. I really don't. I don't need it all the time, but I love it. I really do. When it happens, it happens. Like sometimes we have sessions where half the people have to leave immediately after the game, and I'm okay with that. It does help to kind of breathe a little bit. It definitely gives you that sense of, especially if it's been a hefty emotional session, having those little moments of brevity to be able to joke, to be able to relax, to be able to talk about the good things in the session, those kinds of things. That's really important. It's really important to do. I don't always need it. I mean, if you're talking about on a personal level, I don't always need it. It's like how Lloyd hates backslappery, but yet he secretly loves backslappery. Like, he'll say he hates it because he doesn't want to, give it, but every single time I've ever played with him, he's always talking about the good that other people have done in the game, which is great. And yeah, I think it's important for that exact reason, to kind of decompress, to enjoy each other's company, like enjoying each other as people, not characters. Because you can play a 4-hour session as a character, but you're really not enjoying each other's company until after the session. Like, I guess that's how I look at it. Yeah, you're enjoying each other's company in the game, but when you're in the game, your mindset is in that character. And then until you break out of that, whether it be for the small break time that you have or the after chat, you don't really get that sort of catharsis that you feel after a good game. Like, it's like taking a shower after you exercise. It's like, oh man, that feels so good. I needed that. Thank you. It's like a big warm hug too. Nothing like, man, you did a good job. 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 Everybody did a good job, right? Nothing like telling you, man, I feel rewarded on that. That's the fun part.
I warned all of you, but here comes an analogy. Gaming is a lot like sex. If you skip the foreplay, then everybody gets into the game and they're cold. But if you take the time to break the ice with each other, to talk things out, get the energies flowing, then it's going to be a hell of a lot better of a time. And when you're done, sometimes you need cuddles.
Thanks, man.
I warned you.
No, that's it's A+. That's RPGs are my sex. That sounds great. I'm gonna have that on a t-shirt.
Dude, you should. You all came for the RPG, but you're staying for the sex talk. You're welcome.
Yep.
Help action after dark.
All
right.
Nothing arouses me more than the clickety clack of dice.
Oh God. What have I done?
You
okay.
started this. Now we're just going down the rabbit hole now, so it's fine.
It's always a downward spiral.
Yep.
That's just how it goes.
Yep. Help action. Need the cuddles.
You need cuddles.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah, and I agree. It's not something that I always need after a game. It is dependent heavily on my emotional investment in kind of where my emotions took me during that game. If it was a particularly heavy, dark kind of emotional ride, then I do like to have a little bit of that, at least, because it's kind of the opportunity to check in with everybody. Like, hey, you and I kind of got into it at that one scene. Are we good? Like, everything cool? I just want to make sure that you're not taking any shit away from the table. I don't want you to go away and be angry at me.
Listen to me, you bastard. How dare you? Do not talk to me like
Chad.
that. Do
Get
not
bent.
talk to me like that.
Get bent, Leo. No, but yeah, I think it's a good way to kind of make sure that everything's copacetic and cool. But I also do that a lot in the private game chat whenever I'm playing online. That's, I use that chat to also try to break everybody and make them laugh whenever they shouldn't. But also it helps me to get all that side chatter out of the way while the game's going on even. Somebody gets through an emotional scene and I'll say, that was brilliant. Like, way to go. Like, I saw how far you took that and that was beautiful. Or somebody does something really cool, uses an ability in a new way that I've never seen before. Then I will be the first one to say, way to go. Like, that was fantastic. And the same thing, if I have in a scene where I'm, butting heads with someone else, immediately afterwards, I'll thank them. Like, thank you so much for coming along, emotionally with me to that point and matching step, because there's a lot of players who won't. So yeah, I think that's probably why I don't often need an after game shit talk. But I know that a lot of people do, and there are certainly times when nothing else works. So, okay. We have a preloaded question from Tim Carney. He says, specifically in the tabletop community, how does one balance giving attention versus asking for it for projects, posts, streams, etc.?
Tim, I appreciate you, sir. And I appreciate that you said that exact question. I read that question earlier, and I was very excited to try to answer it. My answer is this. I think it's a very fine line you got to walk, right? And what I mean by that is I can be in the community and be supportive and be loving and be everything, just being like, oh yeah, happy that everybody's doing everything that they want to do. But I also have to look at what are my goals in the RPG community. And you can try to do things alone. You can, but I have learned over the course of the time in this community that collaborating and asking for help when you know you need it, there's a difference. Asking for help and saying, hey, this is a goal I want to do. This is something I want to accomplish for me. How can I ask you for help is different than asking for a seat at the table. You know what I mean? Like, I think, Jeremy, you can kind of understand what I'm saying, right? Where it's like, it's different than me going, hey, you have a really cool stream and your stream has a ton of people that are on it. I'd like to have a seat at that table because of your popularity. I'd like to have a seat at your table. That's an entirely different thing than me going, hey, this is something I really want to do. Jeremy, I really like your momentum game. I really love your setting. I'd like to run a campaign in that setting, but I have no unearthly idea how to even start. Would you be willing to help me and we can collaborate and work together to build something? That takes the pressure off of you as a developer and as a producer, right? Because I'm not asking you directly, hey, I need to be in that game, or hey, I need to be on your channel. It's saying, this is what I'd like to do. Can I then help me venture out into that, however it may be? And then you can have a very open, honest friendship communication with that person of saying, hey, what can we mutually do to help each other? Because I want to make you look better or promote something that you've done. And I also want to promote me in some way, shape, or form. So as long as there's this mutual understanding of we're both benefiting from this collaboration, I think that's a benefit. If you're constantly focused on yourself and your self-promotion, that's where it becomes negative. If I were to sit out there and be like, my stuff's the best thing in the world, I have like this and do all this thing and do all these, that's where you start getting into the negative side of it. Where if I was pushing to get somebody to like notice me, like, hey, look at all the things I can do, it's different, right? I will never push somebody to have me on their channel. I'm blessed and thankful that I have so many friends within the community that have allowed me on their channels. But it usually comes from an invite. I don't go out there and ask for it unless somebody's got me already on their list of potential people that they would want to come ask. You know, I don't, unless there's an interest post that I find interesting or do something, I'm not going to go out of my way to ask. I will say, though, that if you don't ask or if you don't make it known that you have these desires, then how are they going to know what you want to advance in? You know, like if I want to improve my production value, how am I going to do that if I don't go to people like Jeremy, if I don't go to people like M or Jacob Norman, or, there's a ton of producers and streamers on a regular basis that are out there that do great work. I'm not one of them. I am not one of them in terms of the GM and, like constantly streaming stuff. I'm not out there doing that. But if I wanted to learn, wouldn't I want to learn from people who are kind of the purveyors of that market right now? So there's a difference between thinking your shit doesn't stink and asking to be a part of the club, and collectively realizing your shortcomings and saying, hey, this is where I want to improve. As a community, can you help me? Because that then becomes a collaborative effort, and it allows you to blend as friends and join together in building something great. So that's how I will answer that question, Jeremy. I think it's all about having that mutual respect for the person you're asking, knowing that when you ask, you're not asking out of selfishness. You're not asking out of like, this is what I want for me. This is what I, don't ask unless you truly mean it for a reason that is going to be mutually beneficial. And you can do it as friends. You can do it as, friends, and enjoy the ride together instead of taking the spotlight. We're going to, like we talked about with the player characters, taking the spotlight. I don't want to take the spotlight from anybody. What I want to do is figure out how to get my own spotlight, but I don't have that. So how do I get that? That's how you get through with community, is you learn from others who are doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer. And I think in regards to his portion of the question being, how do you balance between giving attention and asking for attention for your own stuff? I mean, it's the same thing as being a player at the table, like knowing when it's your moment to shine and when it's your moment to help other people. And thankfully, something like social media, Facebook, such as the AbTab group or otherwise, it's really very easy to support and help the people that are in your community. I have a hard time self-promoting. I post my links up and I'm like, here's a little description in case you're interested. And then I'll send out like a message or two saying, hey, this is going to happen in just a little bit, just in case people are interested. But I'm really bad about making sure that I spread the word really wide and that I'm constantly doing it and, at regular intervals. And a lot of that is just because I don't want what I'm doing to become that much of a task, that much of a chore. I don't want it to become to the point where I regret or feel downtrodden having to keep up with it. I have people who tune into the show, and I'm so thankful that all of you do. And I want to repay that. So anytime that people have interacted with me in a positive way and they go to share something within the community, I'm going to do everything that I can to say, yes, hey, check out what this person's doing. I don't have a loud voice to add to the chorus here, but I have a voice, and I want everybody to know that this person's doing something cool. Come check it out.
Yeah, you got to constantly lift, right? You got to constantly lift.
Why not?
Because there's the duality of, if I lift someone else, when I come to the table and I go to do something, they're going to lift me, because I've lifted them, because I've supported them, because I've been in that life. The assumption and the hope is that they will also do the same for you. And I can tell you this community has done that for me every time. So, yeah.
that's how a community thrives and becomes a very positive, healthy space. The way that AbHab has been for a number of years now is because people are they have a genuine desire to support one another. And that's rare, which is very unfortunate.
I feel like you can support them through social media fairly well, but also think about this, like just viewing their product, right? Like just going and viewing games that your friends have made. There's no way I will ever catch up on the amount of content that I have missed. Dawnbringers, I'm so far behind, I'm not even going to tell you. But dude, I watch that stuff. I love it. I love every minute of every game. And I enjoy it when new content comes out, when like Mecha Hack comes out or Dragon Grin comes out, like especially new mechanics. I will siphon myself to watch something for new mechanics just because I want to see what's going on. The idea of spreading that love, though, Tim, like I feel like is really important. So you spread the love with both collaboration and support in any way possible. So even if I can't be there to be a part of a playtest or to be a part of whatever, I can at least support and watch the VODs. I can then take that VOD and then put it on my Twitter and be like, yo, I just watched one of the most amazing games ever. You know, like you said, Jeremy, even if you're a small voice, you're still the voice. The bigger the thread that gets built, the more your overall development becomes.
And again, even if you aren't the kind of person who is willing to interact for whatever reason, and Kenya just brought it up in the chat at the same time here, even just a share without any context or comment, that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with that at all. God knows I've submitted too many likes and loves and things on Facebook just because I'm excited that somebody's doing something. Like, oh, hey, somebody's got a game this evening. That's really cool. That sounds like an interesting premise. Like, it took me like 10 seconds. It's not hard to do, but it means something to someone, and to me, that's important. Okay, we have another question from Cole Sparks. Oh, another one of our preloaded questions. How much do your character's relationships with the other party members inform your concept of the character? Or do those relationships dictated by your vision or are those relationships dictated by your vision for the character? Which do you find leads more fluidly to a good storyline?
Okay. Ooh, that's great. Cole, so here's what I'll say to that. Yes, you're right. I know your answer in the comments earlier was it depends, and you're right. It does depend on the scenario. But I kind of prefer to allow my characters to inform, like the characters around me to inform my character decisions. I kind of prefer that. I think it's nice to have maybe a handful, like maybe five personal like virtues that your character will not break. They will not break. That is who their personality is. That is what they are all about. But it doesn't mean that your character can't change. So through organic role play with other people, maybe the character goes and changes in a way that you weren't expecting. And now you have to feel that and have to kind of come to terms with that. Those are the kinds of RP moments that I love. So I will always go and look at how those other players and their decisions are now influencing me. I can tell you I did that a lot during our Curse of Strahd campaign. 100% did that because other players went and did actions. And then a lot of times I felt like Faust was constantly doing reactions. It was like, they'll go do this on their own. And then now Faust has to pick up the pieces and kind of figure out what he needs to do to help them. So sometimes it can be reactionary. Other times it is 100% me knowing the things that my character will do and doing them, and then seeing the reactions of my fellow players and how that works. So it can be, you can play both sides. I've done that where I walk in and here is my character, and immediately the rest of the party has to know, okay, this is like, I'll make one big decision, and that decision will now inform the rest of my party. Oh, this is the kind of character he's playing for the rest of the night. So I think both can happen. It just depends on the character, depends on the day. With this dude, it happens almost immediately every time. With, like, he and I can be in a game, and within the first 10 minutes, we've decided dynamically who our characters are, why we have a backstory, even if we didn't discuss it, especially in one-shots. Like, one-shots are notorious for us to be like, in the moment, 5 minutes, we've already got an idea in our heads of who we are, what we're doing, and it's great. And then we just organically riff off each other for 4 hours.
Yeah, I think I would have to say that it's a bit of both for me also. I like coming to the table with a character for the first time, having, like you said, a couple of beats in mind for how I'm going to play the character, a certain personality trait, a certain thing that they do when they attack.
Yeah, if you got a quirk, great.
Yeah, a quirk, exactly. Something that I can lean into already from the get-go in a game. Things that I can start using to illustrate who my character is. But I love to leave, again, the best analogy that I've ever come across is leaving one-sided Velcro exposed on the character. So that way you are receptive to things that are coming along. And eventually something's going to stick and stick really well. And you know it in the moment. When somebody says something or somebody brings up a part of their character's past, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's great. I have a thing in my character's backstory that's kind of like that. So let's just twist and make it fit and make it the same thing. And again, to me, this thing, this aspect of their character and this aspect of your character can be interesting. They can be chocolate. But the peanut butter that makes it fantastic is the bridge that connects those two things.
Do I just need to buy you a sponsorship for Reese's right now? We just need to just...
And Reese's.
That's literally your
now
whole life.
I'll understand my character motivation.
Erasmus needs to be changed to Sex and Reese's Expeditions.
Sex and peanut butter.
Is that your new tagline? Is that sexy peanut butter?
Welcome to Sexy Peanut Butter. My name is Jeremy.
Oh, man. All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the relationship between any two things is almost always more important than the two things themselves, in my opinion. That's almost always the case. Okay. Moving right along, we have a question, another last of our front-loaded questions.
Yeah.
Comes from Keel Adam. What's your favorite type of inner PC relationship? Siblings, old friends, platoon mates, master, apprentice, etc., etc.
Ooh, okay. Keel, I tell you, again, it varies because I love a bunch of them. Like I've played in a bunch of them. I've played husband, wife. I've played brother, brother. I've played father, daughter. I've done a ton of different styles. It really depends on the players you're playing with, because I think it really depends on the kind of response you get from that other player. My favorite overall, I don't know, man. I can't give you a favorite. I really can't, because I love them all. Specifically for help action, I will probably say the brother dynamic. I always love that, and I think it's because I never had a brother growing up. I am one of two. I'm the older brother and I have a younger sister. But I never had a brother growing up. So when I get an opportunity to play that brother dynamic and have, whether it be older brother, younger brother, whatever, having that moment of experiencing that dynamic, because it's something that's not naturally in my real life, is fun for me. It's very fun. And I think that that's something that players should attempt to do. You should go out, and if you haven't experienced a certain dynamic, set yourself up a goal that says, hey, I'd like to play this and this. If you've never done it, it's kind of fun to see how that relationship will play out. I've played so many different ones now that I don't know if I've got any left to play. But the brother one is really fun for me, because if you get it with the right person, those dynamics are always really good. Lionel and Sam played off each other so well during the Strahd campaign. Jeremy and myself, whenever we're in a game together, we're basically brothers in real life, so it doesn't change, man. It's just organic. What you're getting out of both of us when we're here is organic. I've played with Jacob Norman, playing a brother sort of deal. I think we were husband and wife at one point in one of our games. And it's like we have, when you're with the right person, that emotional connection you have to them in real life allows you to have those emotional connections in game. So, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, and I think I would have to cheat on answering Keel's question. In that is, my favorite relationship is the one that matches my relationship with the player.
Oh, that's cool, man. Yeah, like best friend.
It's just like you said. I think there's more material to pull from.
Yeah,
the relationship is already established between two people, and I think that it's definitely possible to have a different kind of relationship than you have with a person in meta, outside of the characters.
Yeah.
That's definitely possible. Obviously, you and I playing brothers is an example.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot to be gained by having an existing relationship with someone and changing the nuances of that relationship.
Oh yeah,
that's exploring that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think having a good rapport with the player that you're going to attempt I use the word intimate, but just a close relationship with. I think that is a massive step up to making that believable and easy to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Having a very empathetic sort of relationship with your fellow partner, or your fellow player in the moment, whatever dynamic that ends up being, which I'm super. If you guys want to give me an example or a trope that I haven't played, I would love to see it, because I don't know. Because I'd like to try it. That's the cool thing, is I'd like to try a dynamic that I've never played before. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, buddy. I think it's always about that person that you're with, and building that, looking at that personal relationship, and seeing how you can now evolve that and see if you can pull that out in the character. Becomes really cool.
Yeah, because to me, the joy of it actually comes from the work that we are doing together as role players.
Yeah.
Just like being an actor on the stage, it's about the other actor you're in the scene with every bit as much as it is about the scene itself.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's not about, my character has to stop this person because I'm their brother. So that's why I'm going to do it. But no, it's the excitement of, I get to play in the scene where I get to have to try to talk my brother back from this ledge, this proverbial ledge. And I know exactly how that scene's going to feel emotionally. And I start getting excited about trying to capture that and portray that in a true fashion. To me, that's a challenge as a role player. And it's one that I absolutely adore about gaming.
Yeah. I have to stop looking at the chat because Tamiko just said she really wants to see me play a mean girl. And I'm like, I gotta stop because you guys are just
mean girl.
I mean, I am. I have
played Leonardo.
Don't talk about this. Don't talk about that.
Ninja Turtles as mean girls.
Ninja Turtles as mean girls. Oh my God, Raphael, no. You're not allowed to. Shut up. You can't sit with
Splinter said.
What does Master Splinter want out of this? Master Splinter doesn't even matter anymore, bro.
Master Splinter's going to keep me after class. All right. So I've got two more things that I want to cover. The first of which is that we have focused a lot on positive relationships. And unlike in real life, in RPGs, I think it is imperative and important that you establish and foster negative relationships. Would you agree?
Are you talking about I hope you're talking about in character, because outside of character,
absolutely. In real life, toxic people go away. But
real life, I don't want to build toxic relationships. But
here we are, Chad.
Here we are. We've built this. Megatron, Optimus Prime.
That's what we've built, Jeremy. You and me, forever dueling until the end. No, I think it is important to build on negative relationships. I think that it is, negative does not mean bad. I think that's something that people need to understand, is that just because it is a negative relationship does not mean it is a bad relationship. I can have a negative relationship with another character. I can have an antagonistic relationship with another character, and that relationship can still be good in a way of like, it's like chunky chili, it's like that, like really good stuff. It's got all the flavor and all the abundance you really want. And you just keep going back for more, even though it's bad for you. That, or like really thick cheese. I know it's bad for me. But it's sweet and great, and I love it. I'm gonna eat it all day. I'm gonna get fat off that negative relationship. Like, it sounds abusive, guys. I'm sorry, it does. It sounds really bad. I'm gonna get fat off this negative relationship, but it is true. Like, you're gonna get more depth of performance, I think, when you have an opportunity to dive into that negative space. Just like art has positive and negative space. If everything is positive on your artwork, then it's just bright colors and beautiful. But what about the little pops of white? What about the little shadows of dark? Like, if you don't have those things, you don't have a dynamic relationship. So understanding that there is need for those negative relationships is good. I want to play out those negative relationships, because those negative relationships are the scary things. Those are the scary storied arcs that like take you down a bad road, or maybe like the storylines that tell you you're gonna go from being a paladin to now being like some dark Sith Lord. Like those are all that is stereotypical trope, but it is true. If you don't take a risk to go down those negative storyline arcs, you never get that meaty goodness that is diving into that space. If I could play a good and wholesome game all day long. It'll look like My Little Pony and it'll be just rainbows and sunshine, but that's not realism and that's not realistic. And because it's not realistic, it's not giving the opportunity for the full-fledged experience of roleplay. So that's what I will say to that. Negative relationships are important and you should play them out. Please do. Go search for them and enjoy them. Don't be a dick about it, but enjoy it. Like play it until the ride stops, and then go back to being happy again. Everything is arcs. Just everything is arcs.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the comment made earlier, how RPGs are stories. Forget just RPGs. Stories in general have to have conflict. If your character is untouchable, if they're invincible, and nothing ever shakes them or moves them or challenges them, then it's going to fall flat. It's not going to be an interesting tale. You're not going to find yourself years later saying, do you remember when the thing happened and we all thought we were going to die? And then at the last moment, that other thing happened, and then boom, and the banners went off and, the trumpets sounded. That's the stuff that you're going to remember, but only because there was conflict.
Yeah. Every story should have conflict. Every story should have conflict. So you have to
think about your favorite comic book hero or your favorite hero in general.
Spider-Man.
The law in comics is you're only as good of a hero as your villain is a good villain.
This is
Without a good villain, you're never going to be a memorable hero.
Yep.
So at the very least, you need to be excited about the challenges that are going to be put in front of your character so that you can have the triumph of overcoming those. And GMs, that's the secret whenever you're putting a negative relationship into the game. In the end, the hero needs to triumph over that negative emotion, that negative relationship. They need to figure it out by the end of your story, in my opinion. But you've got to put it in there. It's necessary.
You gotta put a little bit, a little bit of salt in the wounds and just let it go. Yep.
And most players are way more willing than you might think. You just got to do so within the boundaries that they're comfortable, and everything's golden. Okay. This is my last question. As always, part of this whole event, part of this whole session is, yes, we're talking about RPGs, but I also really like to take the opportunity to let my audience, and in some cases myself, get to know my guest a little bit better. And as a part of the privilege of getting to call you my friend and my brother, I have been privy to the knowledge that you suffer from some chronic health issues that can be fairly severe. What I'm kind of curious to know is, have your experiences with these challenges had any bearing at all on how you look at relationships within the context of a game?
Yeah, they have. And I've been thinking about that question for a while since you posed it to me. So for those of you guys who don't know, I think I'm at the point now in my life where I'm comfortable enough to just talk about it, I have a condition known as coachial bladder extrophy, and it sounds like a mouthful of, drow, speech or whatever. But it is 100% a real thing. And it affects not only my gastrointestinal system, but my spinal column, everything. It kind of wrecked me, but it was from birth, so I have had the opportunity to grow up and experience it and learn how to balance it in a decent way. I won't say great way because it's not great, but in a decent way enough to where I'm okay. It involves a lot of, with the spinal issues. I have scoliosis. I had the potential for having spina bifida. Thank God I didn't get that. But it was all on the table. But even now, I still suffer from nerve pain and problems in that regard. Constantly having to make sure that because I have bladder extrophy, I deal with an ostomy, and it's that whole thing. And Jeremy, thank you for posing this question. I just want to say that because it allows me to be vocal about things that I've pretty much hidden from the community, just because, not that I was ashamed of it, but just, you don't know how the rest of the community will receive it. So how it gets presented to me as far as how I portray it in characters or use those real life struggles toward my games, that's a whole different, I feel like it definitely informs me to be more empathetic, genuinely. And so I think that's why I tend to play more good characters than bad, because I like being that empathetic hero. I like being the guy that's going to save the world. I gotta be that. I gotta play that character. I've played some dark ones though. Like right now in one of the campaigns I'm playing a shadow warlock who essentially has turned a guild of his own mind controlled minions. Does that sound like a great person? No, but he's doing it for a greater good, for a greater cause. So I always like playing that balance of struggle and heroism. So there's always something about the character that will always be a significant flaw. I will always put a significant flaw in every character I play. The only reason why I do that is because I myself, it's going to be difficult. Sorry. I myself feel flawed, on a day-to-day basis. So putting a bit of that into whatever character I'm playing allows me to have better performances. It allows me to have better PC interactions. It allows me to do a bunch of stuff that if I didn't have this, probably wouldn't be able to deliver the way that I do. Because I look at these games both from an escapism aspect and the ability to be something that I'm not, or being able to play a barbarian and lift 1,000 things when I can barely lift a box at work, that, or playing a halfling because I'm naturally short, and things like that. I use those aspects of me, but at the same time, I also recognize my strengths. I know I want to highlight the strengths of that character, but also recognize that the flaws that I have in real life can be utilized in game. Not like you will probably never ever see me give like a medieval ostomy to a character, like I'm never gonna have that happen. But I think like it allows you to really have that empathy. It allows you to really have the emotional investment in other characters, as well as the emotional investment in your character. I know I have an emotional investment in every character that I play, even the one shots. Like I find a way to make those one shots special for me. It's so difficult to, correlate the things that I deal with into a game, but I think what happens is you start looking at, okay, here's the flaw that I want to give my character. How can I highlight that flaw? I want to highlight that flaw because I want that flaw to not be seen as a flaw. I'd really like it if the rest of the viewers and the people around me don't see my character flaw as a character flaw. That would be great if I can somehow convey this character flaw in a way that makes the audience sympathetic and empathetic to that, because that then makes me know that I'm doing my job. If I'm pulling out that flaw and making people love that character, not only for the great things they do, but the flawed things they do, that's the cool thing for me. So I don't know, man. I let myself explore pain in a way that I don't think a lot of other people get a chance to do. Because I'll tell you, from a personal perspective, playing online with you guys right now kind of gets difficult sometimes, because I'll be sitting there for 3 to 4 hours and my legs will start to go numb. Or, I'll have to get up and I'll have to move, or I'll have to just play around with my body to try to get it to function for the remainder of the session. But I never put that on my face. I think that's on something that I'm proud that I can do, but I know that not everybody can. It's the ability to hide that emotion or hide that pain, especially while you're in the moment of the game. There's been moments where I've had to get up, I've had to leave, I've had to come back, I've had to do things. And that is something that goes into the communication of the community. Having them be aware of personal problems and knowing that, oh man, if Chad just drops out for 5 minutes or walks away and says he's going to be right back, I will, but it might be because my legs are numb, or I can't do something for right now. This question is really difficult for me because I think I've answered it, but I think the biggest thing for me, as far as my medical problems, it also helps me because one of the things that I set out to do when I started wanting to be involved in video games and games in general is I wanted to be an advocate for players who were dealing with medical issues. I wanted to be an advocate because I constantly felt like there weren't enough of us out there raising our voices and being a part of it. And to look at me, on a daily basis, you've met me in person, I don't look from afar like I have physical issues whatsoever. But I think knowing that I do now, especially, I mean, I hope that it doesn't change how people view me. And, like, obviously, no, I mean, I think it's going to be good, but I just, the words are hard right now for me to come to, but I think it does inform how I play, because I'm constantly playing with my heart. Like I don't play strategic D&D. I play emotional D&D. I aim to not be the min-maxer. I don't aim to be like, I'm not looking at statistics and thinking about how much damage I'm doing. I'm thinking about, okay, cool. How do I get the most out of my other players at the table? How do I make them enjoy what we're doing right now? That's my ultimate goal, is to just love everyone, to appreciate everyone, and to be as sympathetic and empathetic in game as I know that they would be to me. So, yeah, that's how I answer that.
For what it's worth, nothing that you mentioned, nothing with the long arcane sounding names, none of that is a flaw. I just want to make that perfectly clear. We are all flawed people, but
Dude,
what you listed,
Bladder
those are
Extra
not.
is a jerk.
I can only imagine.
It sucks.
kind of-
And I could go into detail about everything, but I won't. If you guys want to know more, please reach out to me. Please, message me. I would love to talk to people in the community. If you are someone who is shy or thinks that you can't play because you have problems, or you might suffer from emotional issues, physical issues, whatever it may be, I want you to know that no matter what it is, the environment and the people you are around, especially in this community, will love you, they will embrace you, and they will thrive with you. So if there's anyone out there right now who is thinking to themselves, I can't be a part of this community because I'm dealing with things that I feel like don't allow me to do it. I understand that. I respect that. And because I do, I want you to know that it is possible. It is possible because there's going to be people in this community who are going to thrive and make you special. Like, their friendship will make you special in that way of just bringing you up. I know for a fact that this year especially, I suffered from some significant depression. It is because of everyone in this circle that keeps me standing and keeps me moving and keeps me motivated. Because I love you guys. Really do.
I love you, Chad. Sincerely, brother.
I love you.
Yeah, I cannot even fathom the kinds of things that you go through on a day-to-day basis.
It took my Tuesday, Thursdays away. I'm upset right now, man. I do physical therapy on Tuesday, Thursdays now, and I'm like, I had opportunities to play games. Like, no, but it's fine. It's all for me to get better and have a better life. And I'm willing to sacrifice my D&D as much as possible to get physically better, so that I can have a life. I can start doing a bunch of things, and really getting out there and doing stuff. Yeah.
I have personally seen and been the recipient of the compassion that you're talking about, and that's one of the reasons why I enjoy playing with you so much. And I do agree. I think that shared trauma is one of the strongest bonds between people. It doesn't mean it's always necessarily the healthiest bond, but it creates a very strong bond between people. And even if it's not trauma from the same incident, the ability to understand what trauma is and what it makes you feel like gives you a massive influx of empathy. Well, for most people, there are, certain brain chemical makeups and things that still have an issue being able to connect those dots. But for the most part, understanding what tragedy and pain feels like, and understanding that someone else's struggle is likewise creating that for them, will lead you to being a more compassionate person. Giving them the benefit of the doubt when you can, helping, asking them if they're okay, asking them if there's something that you can do, telling them a funny joke, telling them how much you enjoyed having them in your game, telling them thank you for running a game for you. I think that's like, why not do those things? It takes more energy to not do those things, in my opinion.
Some people are assholes, Jeremy. Some
Unfortunately.
people are assholes, and we're not going to all get sunshine and rainbows, man.
It's true, I guess. I guess not all of us can play My Little Ponies, to quote Chad.
Yeah.
You heard him say it, not me, him.
Sorry, but it's true.
And all your My Little Pony anti-hate mail to him.
I got brony friends, man. You can't hate me. You can't hate on me, okay? Look, there's something to be said of this community too. I don't think anyone in this community that we're a part of is like that. I don't think anybody that I know, I don't think anybody you know is like that. We're very receptive. We're very loving. We're very kind. Again, I'll say this: if you want to message me and you want to talk to me about stuff, I don't care. It doesn't have to be my stuff. Right? Like, if somehow I find someone out there who's like, I relate, I know what you're going through, that's great, that's cool. I'm excited for that. I want that. If there's another person out there who has bladder extrophy who's also playing D&D, bravo. Like, let's chat, let's hang out. But if not, and that's not what you're dealing with, but you still want to chat, and you still want someone to be a soundboard, I'm there for you, because that's the kind of person I am. That's the kind of person I always will be. I know I check up on Jeremy at least probably once a month.
Yeah, I would say so.
I just check up on you and be like, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah. Usually you just kind of come by and virtually kick me in the stomach and tell me to get up.
That's true.
But I mean,
no, it's a lovingly abusive relationship. It's fine. No, but no, on a serious note, I legitimately think that everybody should be willing to. I hadn't been for the longest time, like, this is the first time I'm actually openly talking about it in front of an audience versus just telling you or telling Matt, or like, there's a certain handful of players within the community who knew, but this is kind of cool for me to be able to talk about it on an open forum that now gets put out everywhere, and people can see it, and then people can see a face that they recognize and that they can relate to, and that might get people who were scared to come to the table to now come to the table. So that's my goal, is hopefully that shows that even if you're dealing with difficulties, you can still play. It's about how you manage those difficulties and how your GM coordinates those difficulties to make you have the best possible experience.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm very thankful that you were willing to field that question, to answer it, and especially in the kind of depth that you were able to go into it for us. One of my goals, like I said, with Help Action, is to try to get to know the person that I'm talking to. Talking to somebody about D&D is always something that is exciting for me. It's a huge part of what I love about this hobby. But even more so is meeting the fascinating people that I have the chance to meet, and really getting to know them as friends, building those relationships. Truthfully, that's what Help Action is about. for me. And I know that some people are uncomfortable discussing certain aspects of their life in a public manner, especially whenever they get to a certain point in their how well known they are. There becomes a little bit of a separation between personal and professional life, and sometimes that wall can be difficult to break down for people. So I try to approach those kinds of questions with asking if it's okay, asking if that's something that my guests are comfortable talking with. And I'm very, very happy whenever my guests trust me enough to handle that kind of a question and to try to keep it comfortable and as respectful as we can. Because I think that these things are important to talk about. I think it's an important step towards normalizing these things so that shame doesn't have to keep it personal or private. That you can keep it personal or private for any other number of reasons, but I don't want shame to ever be one of those. And I think that these kinds of conversations are the only way that we get to that point. So I sincerely appreciate the fact that you're willing to have that conversation with me. So thank you, Chad. I think we're at almost 2.5 hours. Yeah. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up.
You know what? I love you. So I would have stayed here for 3. Are you kidding me? I would have stayed here.
Dude.
Yeah.
I love talking to you. Okay. So why don't you tell the people where they can find you, what you might have up, things like that.
Right now
you want to in parting, and then we'll call it a night.
Right now, you can find me over in 2 places. I am over at a place called Roll Call RP on Twitch. We stream every other Saturday. So we just streamed last Saturday. So we will probably not stream again for 2 weeks. But we're over there playing in one of my GM's homebrew worlds, and it's been pretty awesome. And then I'm over at CFT RPG on Twitch, our lovely Alan Holloway. And we are running a Adventures in Middle Earth campaign right now that is actually being run and GM'd by Lionel. So I'm super, super happy about that. And we had our first session last Friday, and it was great. So you can catch me over there on Fridays, every Friday at CFT RPG. And otherwise, I will say it right here for you right now. I am going to attempt at every ounce of my being to start running more games this year, because I want to run more games, because I want to get better at being a GM. So I want to run more games in a multitude of different systems. So yeah, my channel, which is my name, you'll find me on YouTube. I'm going to start trying to run more games. It may not be in, time slots that are accommodating to everybody, because I am in the Pacific Coast time slot, but I'm going to try my best to make it so that as many people as I can get a chance to play in games that I want to run and games that I want to try to pursue. I'm tired of just sitting back and being a player. I want to have that like Jeremy Lilly moment where I can just sit back with the popcorn and just watch as dynamics happen. I don't get that. I don't get that cool thing. I barely do that. So yeah, that's going to be my goal for this year, is to try to run more games. What systems, I don't know, but yeah.
Well, anybody who is looking for Chad's YouTube channel, you should be able to find the link to that down in the description of this video. Please do go check him out, especially the work that he does over in Alan's game. That's a fantastic group of people, and Alan is a fantastic GM, as well as a very good friend of mine. In addition, Chad, the promise that you're going to be running games has me very excited. Don't tease me. Just like, again, sex. Don't tease me unless you plan to deliver.
It'll happen, but it'll happen sparingly. Like actual sex, it'll just happen sparingly. It'll be like, oh, hey, here we go. Here's a one shot. Here's an interest post. You got one opportunity, and then I put the sweatpants on. And then
it's now or never, Mabel. Exactly. All right, so dude, this has been great. Again, I always love talking to you.
See, I'm gonna walk away from this, and I'm gonna be hyped up. You guys gotta understand. I know we had AtCon online this year, and that was great. That was so much fun. I enjoyed that, but I haven't seen your face in almost 2 years. It's getting really frustrating. Like, I can see you, but there's a joy of me hugging you and being around you, and I miss that. So, thanks, buddy. Thank you. I love you.
I told you we were going to hug the webcams.
In real life. But yeah, I will bring you a bag full of Reese's and just dump it on you when I see you.
Just don't bring me a bag of sex.
It's like, yo, bro. Yeah, Reese's party. No, I think it's going to be fun. Obviously, I hope, pray for AtCon this upcoming year, because I want to be around you guys and I want to see you guys more. But this kind of stuff needs to happen more. Don't just invite me onto your talk show. Like, we should just chat and hang out and do stuff when we're not filming these things.
Says the guy that was just talking about how busy he is with too many games and how popular.
I'm honestly not. I'm just blowing my
yes, you are so, dude.
I just
now he's being
humble. Allow me to be bashful and humble, sir.
A face like yours can't be humble, Chad.
Thanks. Thanks. No, look, buddy, when you invited me to do this, it was very special because you are one of my best friends in the entire community. And I could sit here and talk to you for 4, 5, 6 hours in a stretch. But yeah, I feel like it's a privilege for me to be here. You kidding me? It's a privilege for me to be on your channel and to be on this show. I don't think you realize how much you do for the community sometimes, Jeremy. I know sometimes you look at yourself and you see like you have a small channel, but I'm going to tell you right now, I look at what you've done and I look at the campaigns you've run, the one-shots you've run, the amount of community involvement and inclusivity that you have developed over the last, how many years have you had your channel now? 5 years. Over the last 5 years, you have become a bastion of what it means to be an exceptional GM, an exceptional friend, right? Like, I can't begin to tell you how much your friendship means to me on a daily basis. So this channel, for those of you out there, if you haven't subscribed, which obviously people who are watching this channel right now, you probably have, and that's great. If you haven't, I highly encourage you to go back through the backlog of everything that this man has done. He is an incredible human being. And I'm not just saying that because he's one of my best friends in the world. He genuinely gives his heart to every single thing that he does. He finds things. He finds little quirks, little one-shots, little things that people love. And he puts everything about himself into it. So if that's what you're looking for in content, I highly recommend that you start recommending this man to everyone you know, because he's an all-star and I love him and I want him to be recognized like that. If you haven't already been, you should be. So I'm going to stop gushing because I don't want to see you cry on TV. And I know that if you cry, I would cry, and then it's just gonna be two grown-ass men crying. And that's just not something that people want to watch. Okay.
Thank you, Chad. Sincerely, man. That's
yeah, man, I love you. Of
it's
course.
huge. All right. Everybody's tired of this bromance. I'm sure.
Of course. No, they're not. They will watch an entire season of this bromance. If I have something to say, they will. It's fine. I'll contact your agent. They'll contact mine. It'll be fine.
Your people will get in touch with my people.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, you bastard. I love you.
I love you too.
But I am so stoked that you came on the show. That I finally found a good topic to net you and drag you into this crazy experiment.
You see what good relationships are, people? This is a good relationship. Find yourself a Jeremy Lilly. Not necessarily like having to go out there and be best friends with Jeremy, but find somebody in the community that you connect with the way that him and I connect. And I promise you, you will not be disappointed. There's nothing but love when you find stuff like this. I've got plenty of friends in this community now. He's the one I go to for practically everything because I love this man. So, dude, okay, I'm going to stop gushing. I love you.
The check's in the mail, Chad.
You can shut this off whenever you want. It doesn't. I'm just going to keep rambling about how cool you are until you're done. So it's fine.
Well, I mean, shit. No, I'm kidding. Again, the check is in the mail. Thank you.
Okay, cool.
No, again, thank you so much, everybody, for watching, whether you watched live with us in this evening. Thank you for sticking with us for this long, or whether you're watching this in pieces later on. It is sincerely appreciated. If you do like this content, please do hit the like button, subscribe. This is episode 31, so there's 30 more episodes that you can watch of this if you like these kinds of discussions. And yeah, there's certain to be more. So yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Again, thank you, Chad. I love you, brother, so much. And until next time, may your dice roll high and your snacks always be with you.